Thanks very much. Yes, I'm not Craig Davies. He would have been here to talk about brand karma. He couldn't be here to talk about brand karma. Get onto Google, put brand karma into Google and find out about brand karma that way. I will not be able to do it any justice that he could have possibly done to it. Who am I? I'm the journalist guy. I've spent the last 16 years of my life wandering around the world asking people questions, and it's a great job to get paid just to ask questions all the time. And thankfully, I've got a little bit of skill within me which enables me to assemble the answers to those questions into a cogent manner which people then enjoy reading. So it really has been a fascinating life, just really thinking about what I'm interested in and asking people about it. So I've been able to do everything from look at the future of broadband, to spend time in Hollywood talking to Australian expats, to interviewing child soldiers in Uganda and so on. What I want to do today, I guess, is share a little bit of my life as a journalist in terms of the things I'm thinking about and how I go about things. But also to, I guess, lead you a little bit into the future that I've been observing through the work that I've done. This slide here tells you, I guess, in broader sense what I want to talk about. Yes, we are talking about social media, and I will cover that within this, but I kind of took the topic apart a bit and expanded it out, so bear with me a little bit if I wander around. One thing that as a journalist I'm fascinated by is change. Journalists write about news, we write about what's happening, what's changed, what's different. And I've learnt a lot about change, particularly that people aren't particularly favourable to change in a lot of cases. A lot of the time we don't like change, we're scared of it. We have a habit of thinking that something which is different, which has changed, is bad, whereas something which is familiar is good. And we can't afford to think that way as we move into this hyper-connected society, because it is going to be incredibly different to what we know today. So I'm going to take you through that now. I myself personally have gone through some significant change recently. That's my daughter Leona. She turned 1 month old yesterday, so my life is completely different to what it was one month and 1 day ago. Bags under the eyes, complete lack of attention, can't remember anything at the moment. But I put her up there because I actually learned I can't use her as a tax deduction if I put her into my slide deck, but what she is good for, as well as bringing a lot of joy to my life and that of my wife, is to act as a metaphor for change, because the life that she's going to have growing up is completely different to one that I had. I am a huge music nut. That's the first album I ever bought, Split Ends, Ends of an Era, $9.99, bought it cash at Brash's. My mother probably drove me to Brash's to buy it because I would have been quite young at the time. She will never buy an album, and she's not touching any of this stuff regardless of how much she wants to get into it. The first thing I would have done with that album was tape it. They call that ripping it now to the web, but back then we just taped it and that way we wouldn't wreck our albums. I can't even remember the last time I looked at one of these things. She will never buy one. Paperback books. I wrote a book, it's out there, it's in paperback. I don't suspect my daughter will ever buy one of these. It's gone by the wayside. In fact, all physical media is on the way out. The CEO of HMV, very large music retailer in London, says that CDs will be off their shelves by 2016. So you can imagine DVDs, Blu-ray, everything else. Limited shelf life. Why? Because of devices like this and tablets, connecting us up to the web, giving us the ability to get everything we want pretty much instantly at the time that we want it. My daughter, as she grows up, will think that this notion of owning media is ridiculous. To her, the notion of having to go to a shop to buy a CD will make about as much sense as running your home off AA batteries and having to go and buy more batteries when your house runs out of power. It makes no sense whatsoever. So she will undoubtedly end up with a device like this, or probably by the time she's getting a mobile phone, it will look more like this. This is from a company called Vuzix. They've just done a patent swap deal with Nokia to embed technology into the lens of the glasses there, which will give you a heads-up display. So rather than walking around like this, looking at your phone and potentially going over the edge of the stage, it will give you that very Top Gun heads-up view kind of display of the world. Which is another great metaphor, because her view of the world is going to be very different to my view of the world. Her understanding of what is normal is going to be completely different to what my understanding of normal is. And undoubtedly, her normal is going to be quite scary for me. I'm going to be a little bit worried about the way that she socialises, the environment within which she does it, how she's spending more time online than I ever did. I was not a sporting kid at all, but I'd always be out trying to do my best at football and cricket. Hopefully she will take up sport as well, but for me that was socialisation. For her, socialisation will exist in a completely different realm. And I guess what I've been doing for the last 2 years in particular, since the announcement of the National Broadband Network, is to try and understand what that realm might look like. We're building this massive project in Australia. Whether you're for it or against it, if it goes ahead, it's going to change a lot of things. It's going to accelerate the rate of change. If you're scared by the changes that you're seeing today, harden up, because change is going to come thick and fast in the future. Some of the changes that we're seeing, we have 2 billion people online around the world today. We've got more than 2 billion actually. We're adding about 300 million a year. That's 1/3 of the world's population is there. That means there is still 2/3 of the world's population that haven't come online yet. This is changing everything. Social media couldn't exist if we didn't have all of these people online today, because social media only works when most of the people you know are sharing that experience online. The other factors which are happening as a result of this is it's bringing this massive labour pool into easy reach. When we were working on the book, we interviewed over 100 people. I didn't really feel like transcribing 100 interviews, so we went to freelancer.com, posted the jobs on Freelancer, and got the transcription done at a fraction of the price in Manila, India, a couple of people in France actually doing it quite cheaply. Brilliant. Not particularly good for the people who used to do my transcribing in Australia that charged me twice as much, and I don't use anymore because I can get it online. So these massive real dislocations. That is changing the way that we think about work. And you heard a little bit about this in some of the previous presentations. Work is no longer a place we go to, it's a thing that we do. And this combination of social media and pools of talent online is creating entirely new working models. Selmat, a company that does direct marketing and other activities, runs a call centre. It's called Selmat at Home. It's worth checking out. They've got about 300 agents, and as you might gather from the name Selmat at Home, none of them work in an office. They all work at home. The guy who runs it, Jacob Murray White, hasn't met most of the people who works for him. He might have spoken to most of them on the phone, but he certainly hasn't ever shaken hands with them. But he's got an incredibly highly performing team. And the reason why his team performs so well is they're happy because they work from home, which is great for people who live in regional areas but want to really engage their brain in a well-paying job. But also because Facebook and other social media tools have actually enabled us to completely change the way that we think about connecting with people. By just checking people's status updates on Facebook, and by having built a little tool where people can check in and swap stories with each other, he's built the virtual water cooler that you used to see in the office. And it's completely changed the way that his team interacts with each other. Now, is it possibly not so great that these guys aren't shaking hands and running into each other in the office every day? I don't want to judge that. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's better or it's worse. It's just different. And every time someone says to me, oh, social media is killing socialisation, it isn't terrible that kids aren't running around playing anymore. Yes, they are running around playing anymore, and if they're not, we need to get them out there. But just because they're spending time in Second Life or World of Warcraft or somewhere else doesn't mean that it's worse than what we had. And just because, as you heard earlier, the study saying that the 7-year-olds today have the skills of a 5-year-old from 20 years ago, I'd really like to drill into that, because I suspect that the skills that you need today are very different to the skills that you needed 20 years ago. And I wouldn't expect my daughter to have the same skills at 5 that I had. She'll have a completely different set of skills because she'll need those to adapt to the future. We are living in a world of information abundance. You've heard this discussed already. This is something which has ruined my industry, being the media industry. When we controlled flow, it was great. We made a lot of money. We don't control flow of information anymore. We don't make so much money. What I love about this, though, is when I was in a large appliance retailer the other day, I was buying a television. The television I wanted to buy wasn't there. I was being sold another television. I didn't know anything about it, so the first thing I did was got my phone out and looked it up and realised that the television that I was being pushed was inferior to one that I wanted, and I walked out as a result, as opposed to being sold to. The information abundance, the ubiquity of information that is available to us now is changing the decision-making process at a granular level. It's going to be unusual for salespeople to pull one over us anymore because we're getting access to perfect or near perfect information. We're dealing with a world that is weightless. The music industry, as we know, has been hit hard by piracy over the course of the last 10 or so years. The reason we got hit hard by piracy was because we got rid of the physical media. We made it easy for people to push files of information around. And the video, film, television industries struggling with this today. But if you think that piracy is an issue just for the media industries, think again, because of applications such as this. This is a printed object. Printed objects. This, if you think manufacturing's in trouble today, then we've got other things to worry about, let alone tariff barriers and what have you. The notion of being able to copy something and replicate it cheaply and easily, these machines are quite expensive at the moment, but the fact that they exist tells me that they will come down in price fairly quickly. And it won't be too long before, we have the house which has the broadband connection, the printer, the whatever, but then it will also have the 3D device. The US Army loves this kind of stuff because if you've got a tank that's broken down in the desert, it's much quicker to print out the bolt that you need to fix the tank than it is to wait for a supply convoy. We are dealing with a society which is now accustomed to instant gratification. This is another trend that's worth thinking about. How long does it take you to book an airline ticket now compared to what it did 15 years ago? The travel agency model, I do worry for these guys because they've got to be adding a lot of value to make up for the time that they take out of your day. And maybe it's that notion of advice that will keep them going. But we have this expectation now that everything we can possibly want to do, we should be able to do instantly. We shouldn't have to wait anymore. And I'm seeing retailers now competing not on in-store customer service, but on the ability to ship a product to you faster than anyone else can. And if you're in retail in Australia and you're worried about competing with people overseas, remember that you can ship something faster from your location in Australia to a local customer than Amazon ever could. So keep that in mind, because that is going to be one of the points which is going to differentiate our retail future. The other thing about instant gratification is we shop at all times of the day, we do banking at all times of day, we need to be able to service customers at all times of the day. So expect technology such as this to become more prevalent over time. My Cyber Twin is an Australian company. It's one small example of using technology to create virtual personas which can answer questions far more effectively than using a search engine on a website. Because the answer to the question, how can I help you, is a lot more easily provided than you having to scroll through 5 different menus to determine what it is you were looking for in the first place. What I love about this stuff, I think a large bank which isn't a sponsor of this event is using it at the moment. The US Army is using a similar technology now in its recruitment space. Because there are a lot of questions that somebody would feel very nervous about asking a recruitment officer, such as, can I join the army if I'm gay? But they will quite happily ask that of a chatbot online because they don't feel that they're going to be judged or that that's going to be recorded against them, and they certainly don't need to confront another human being in order to do it. Virtuosity extends beyond virtual people to virtual environments. We heard a lot of hype about Second Life some time back. Second Life, some people love it, most people didn't like it, we walked away from it. Don't expect that virtual reality ends with Second Life. There were 11 million people playing World of Warcraft back in March of this year. I'm not sure if the number's gone up or down since then. People are going into these things now just to hang out and chat to each other. And then they'll go off and kill some orcs or something. But it's just changing, once again, the way that we socialise. Better or worse, I'm not going to pass judgment. One other trend that I want you to think about before I relinquish the stage here is that we are also building an internet which is going to look very different to that which it exists today. 5 billion devices connected up in 2010, 50 billion by 2020. Those devices aren't just more iPhones and what have you. This is vending machines that can connect to the internet in order to order more Diet Coke because they're running low. Or cars which are capable of communicating with each other, and the traffic lights in order to say, hey, there's a lot of us queued up here, can you please let the lights stay green for a little bit longer so we can all get through? Think about this very carefully. 20 billion connected devices, artificial intelligence. We are going to be the minority on the internet fairly soon, if not already. By 2020, human beings will be outnumbered on the internet 10 to 1. So this is a future that we're moving into. Now, if all of this sounds a little bit scary, and I appreciate that it can do, because it's a lot of change, I want to introduce you to this guy. You've already heard his quote from a session earlier. His name is William Gibson. William Gibson wrote the book Neuromancer. He is the chap that came up with the word cyberspace, but he's worth knowing because this is the quote that I think really identifies how we will deal with the future that we are moving into. It's worth remembering that whatever industry you're in today, best practice may already exist, even if it's not in your space. I hosted a conference in the financial services space recently. These large banks don't look to these large banks for innovation anymore. They look to these companies, because that's where they see innovation will be. And I would advise all of you that if you're worried about the sort of changes that we're moving into and you want to develop creative solutions to those changes, look for best practice outside of your own space. It's interesting, this is more like what the bank of the future will look like than a bank today. That, of course, is the Apple Store in New York. So on that note, I'm going to shut up because I'm running out of breath and I've gone at a million miles an hour to do this. I'd like to thank you for your attention. There's a book out there if you want to learn more, or grab me and collar me later on. But the one point I would leave you with is change is inevitable. We have to accept that change will happen regardless of whether we want it to or not. It's only by taking an active stake in change, by making decisions today, that we can have any influence over it. And I would advise you, for all of you that think change is happening in the future, it doesn't. Change happens right now, and it happens as a result of the decisions that we make today. Thank you.